Today, we dive into a gripping tale of love, betrayal, and resilience. In A Cheating Wife's Betrayal, Rebuilding After the Storm, follow Michael as he navigates the heart-wrenching discovery of his wife Samantha's infidelity. Witness his journey to protect his children and rebuild his life, proving that even in the face of the deepest betrayals, hope and strength can emerge. Stay tuned for a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, filled with emotional twists and inspiring moments. Michael stared out the window of their new house, a sprawling two-story home nestled in the quiet suburbs of San Francisco. The air was crisp, and the autumn leaves painted the ground in vibrant shades of orange and yellow. The move had been a significant change, but it was a welcome one. At 31 years old, Michael had just secured a promotion that brought him back to California, closer to where he and his wife, Samantha had grown up. For Michael, it felt like a fresh start. Inside, Samantha, 27, was bustling around, trying to unpack the last of the boxes. She had a youthful vibrancy about her, with her curly brown hair pulled back in a loose ponytail and her green eyes sparkling with energy. Their children, Grace a bright and curious 4-year-old, and Ethan a rambunctious 2-year-old, added a lively atmosphere to their home. Michael, can you help me with this box? Samantha called from the kitchen. Michael turned and saw her struggling with a large box labeled, "Dishes, Fragile." "Sure thing, honey," Michael replied, crossing the room to assist her. "We need to make sure these don't end up in pieces." Grace and Ethan were playing in the living room, their laughter echoing through the house. Grace, with her curly blonde hair and big blue eyes, was the spitting image of Michael's mother, Barbara. Ethan, on the other hand, had inherited Samantha's darker hair and eyes, giving him a mischievous look that perfectly matched his energetic personality. "Mommy, when are we going to the park?" Grace asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Soon, sweetheart," Samantha said, smiling. "We just need to finish unpacking a few more things." Michael loved these moments. The sound of his children's laughter and the sight of his wife busy with household tasks filled him with a sense of contentment. Life in San Francisco was starting off well. They had moved back to California earlier that year after Michael received a promotion. It was a big step, but it allowed them to be closer to family, especially since both sets of grandparents lived nearby. Michael's parents, Barbara and Robert, were thrilled to have them back. They had recently moved into a retirement community but kept their old family home, renting it to Michael and Samantha. The house, with its historical charm and spacious layout, was perfect for their growing family. "Michael, do you think we should invite Mom and Dad over for dinner this weekend?" Samantha asked as she carefully placed dishes into the cupboard. "That's a great idea," Michael agreed. They'd love to see the kids and catch up. As the day went on, the family continued to settle into their new home. Michael and Samantha worked together to arrange furniture, hang pictures, and make the house feel like their own. Grace and Ethan explored every nook and cranny, their curiosity leading them to discover new favorite spots to play. That evening, after a long day of unpacking, the family gathered in the living room. Michael lit a fire in the fireplace, and they all sat down to enjoy a cozy evening together. "Daddy, can we read a story?" Grace asked, snuggling up to Michael. "Of course, Pumpkin," Michael said, pulling out one of Grace's favorite books. As he read aloud, Samantha sat beside him, holding Ethan in her lap. The warmth of the fire and the sound of Michael's voice created a serene atmosphere, and for a moment, all was right in the world. As Michael read the story, his mind wandered back to the journey that had brought them here. He remembered meeting Samantha during her final semester of college. They had met at a friend's party, and from the moment he saw her, Michael knew she was someone special. Their connection was instant, and they had dated for 13 months before tying the knot. Their wedding had been a beautiful affair, held in a picturesque garden in California. Surrounded by family and friends, they had promised to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. Michael recalled the joy he felt that day, the certainty that they were meant to be together. Their first few years of marriage were spent on the East Coast, where Michael's job had taken them. Those years were filled with new experiences and the birth of their children. Moving back to California felt like a homecoming, a chance to reconnect with their roots and build a life in the place they loved. Michael, are you okay? Samantha's voice brought him back to the present. Yeah, just thinking, Michael replied, smiling at her. About how lucky we are. Samantha reached out and took his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. We are lucky, she agreed. And I'm so glad we're here, together. As the story ended and the children began to doze off, Michael and Samantha carried them to their rooms. After tucking them in, they returned to the living room, where they sat down to discuss their plans. So, what do you think about the new job? Samantha asked, leaning against Michael. It's challenging, but I love it, Michael said. It's a great opportunity, and being close to family makes it even better. I was thinking, Samantha began, hesitating slightly. Maybe we could host a family gathering soon. Invite everyone over to see the house and spend time together. Michael nodded. That's a great idea. It would be nice to have everyone here. They talked late into the night, discussing their hopes and dreams for the future. Michael was excited about his job and the opportunities it would bring. Samantha was looking forward to settling into their new community and getting involved with local activities and events. As they planned, their conversation turned to their children and the experiences they wanted to share with them. They talked about trips to the beach, hikes in the nearby mountains, and visits to the city's many attractions. We should take the kids to the zoo, Samantha suggested. Grace would love it, and Ethan would be fascinated by all the animals. Sounds like a plan, Michael said, smiling. Let's do it this weekend. Over the next few days, Michael and Samantha worked tirelessly to get their home in order. They arranged furniture, decorated rooms, and made the space their own. Michael spent a lot of time in the yard, tending to the garden and setting up a play area for the kids. One afternoon, while Michael was working in the yard, Grace came running over, her face alight with excitement. Daddy, look what I found, she exclaimed, holding up a small, shiny object. Michael knelt down to inspect it. What is it, sweetie? Grace beamed. It's a magic rock. It can make wishes come true. Michael smiled, playing along. Well, then, what should we wish for? Grace thought for a moment, then whispered in Michael's ear. I wish for a happy family. Michael's heart swelled with love. That's a beautiful wish, Grace. As they stood there, surrounded by the beauty of their new home, Michael felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had a wonderful wife, 2 amazing children, and a bright future ahead. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he knew they could face them together. That night, as Michael lay in bed, he reflected on the events of the day. He thought about Grace's wish and the promise he had made to himself to always protect and cherish his family. He knew that life could be unpredictable, but he was determined to make the most of every moment. Samantha curled up beside him, and Michael wrapped his arms around her. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, Samantha replied, her voice filled with warmth and affection. As they drifted off to sleep, Michael felt a sense of peace. They were building a life together, one filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. And no matter what the future held, he knew they would face it as a family. It had been a month since the family had moved into their new home, and life was settling into a comfortable routine. Michael enjoyed his new job and the proximity to family made everything easier. Samantha had quickly adapted to their new environment and was active in the local community. Grace and Ethan seemed to love their new surroundings, often playing in the spacious backyard or exploring the neighborhood park. One sunny afternoon, Samantha decided to go shopping with her mother, Patricia. It was a perfect day for it, and they had planned to spend the afternoon together browsing stores and enjoying a leisurely lunch. Michael offered to stay home with Grace and Ethan, giving Samantha a chance to unwind. As Samantha and Patricia drove away, Michael waved them off and turned to his children. All right, kids, what do you want to do today? Play outside, Grace exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Michael laughed. All right, let's head to the backyard. The backyard was a child's paradise, with a swing set, a sandbox, and plenty of room to run around. Grace and Ethan wasted no time in diving into their playtime, their laughter filling the air. Michael watched them with a smile, feeling grateful for these precious moments. After a while, Grace grew tired and climbed onto Michael's lap. "Daddy, can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft. "Of course, sweetheart," Michael said, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "What do you want to talk about?" Grace fidgeted for a moment, then looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Daddy, I saw Mommy napping with the window man." Michael's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, Grace? When did you see this?" Grace nodded earnestly. "Last week. I was looking for Mommy because Ethan dropped his pacifier and was crying. I went to your room and saw Mommy and the window man lying on the bed." Michael felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He had to tread carefully. "What were they doing, Grace?" "They were just lying there, Daddy," Grace said, her voice a whisper. "Mommy got up really fast when she saw me. She kissed me and then took me back to bed." Michael struggled to keep his composure. "Did Mommy say anything to you?" Grace nodded. "She said, let's keep this our secret, okay?" Michael's mind raced. He had no reason to doubt Grace's words. She was a bright and observant child. But the implications were staggering. Could Samantha have betrayed him? "Thank you for telling me, Grace," Michael said gently. "You're a very brave girl. Let's keep this our secret for now, okay?" Grace nodded, her eyes serious. "Okay, Daddy, I won't tell anyone." Michael hugged her tightly, his mind reeling. He needed to find out the truth. But first, he had to maintain a sense of normalcy for the sake of his children. That evening, after putting Grace and Ethan to bed, Michael sat down at his computer. He had to verify Grace's story. He searched through his mind, recalling any unusual behavior from Samantha in the past few weeks. Nothing had seemed out of the ordinary, but then again, he hadn't been looking for signs of infidelity. The next day, while Samantha and the kids were out at a local event, Michael set up a surveillance system. He strategically placed cameras around the house, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one in their bedroom. He made sure they were discreet, blending into the surroundings so they wouldn't be easily noticed. For the next few days, Michael checked the footage religiously. He felt a mix of guilt and determination. He needed to know the truth, even if it meant invading Samantha's privacy. The cameras captured nothing unusual, and Michael began to wonder if he had overreacted. But then, one afternoon, he received an alert. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Michael was at work when his phone buzzed with an alert from the surveillance system. He opened the app and watched as the footage showed a truck pulling into their driveway. Michael's heart pounded as he recognized the truck. It was Tyler's, the window man. Michael watched as Tyler walked up to the front door and was greeted by Samantha. They exchanged a few words before she led him inside. Michael switched to the living room camera and saw Samantha and Tyler standing close together, talking in low voices. Then, to his horror, they kissed. Michael's world shattered. The confirmation was there, plain as day. Samantha was having an affair with Tyler. He felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but he forced himself to stay calm. He needed to handle this situation carefully, for the sake of his children. Michael left work early and drove home, his mind racing. He called his mother, Barbara, and explained the situation. She promised to come over immediately to help with the children. Michael also called his uncle Henry and his brother Daniel, asking them to meet him at the house. When Michael arrived home, he parked a little down the street to avoid alerting Samantha and Tyler. Barbara arrived shortly after with his Aunt Susan. Together, they formulated a plan. Barbara and Susan would take Grace and Ethan to the park, keeping them out of the house while Michael, Henry, and Daniel confronted Samantha and Tyler. They needed witnesses, and Michael wanted to ensure that things didn't get out of hand. Michael, Henry, and Daniel entered the house quietly. The sound of laughter and muffled conversation came from the bedroom. Michael's anger flared, but he kept his emotions in check. They approached the bedroom door, and Michael took a deep breath before pushing it open. Samantha let out a scream, and Tyler scrambled off the bed, trying to gather his clothes. Michael stood in the doorway, his phone recording the scene. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, his voice cold and steady. "Michael, it's not what it looks like," Samantha cried, pulling the sheets around her. "Save it, Samantha," Michael said. "I have it all on camera." Tyler stammered apologies, but Michael ignored him. "Get out," he said to Tyler. "And don't even think about taking your truck. It's blocked in." Tyler dressed hurriedly and left without another word. Samantha sat on the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Michael, please, let me explain," she sobbed. "There's nothing to explain," Michael said, his voice hard. "You betrayed me. You betrayed our family." Barbara and Susan returned with the children after Tyler had left. Grace and Ethan were blissfully unaware of the drama that had unfolded. Michael pulled his mother aside and explained what had happened. Barbara was shocked and heartbroken for her son. Michael knew he needed to take action. He contacted Mr. Anderson, his lawyer, and began the process of filing for divorce. He couldn't see any way to reconcile with Samantha after such a betrayal. Samantha, meanwhile, was desperate to make amends. She called and texted Michael constantly, pleading for forgiveness and a second chance. But Michael was resolute. The trust had been shattered, and he couldn't see a future with Samantha anymore. The days that followed were difficult. Michael focused on his children, ensuring they felt loved and secure despite the upheaval. He arranged for Samantha to stay with her mother, Patricia, while they worked out the details of the separation. Grace sensed the tension but seemed to understand on some level that things were changing. Ethan, still too young to grasp the situation, continued to play and laugh as always. Michael leaned on his family for support. Barbara, Robert, Henry, and Daniel were there for him every step of the way. Their unwavering support gave him the strength to navigate the challenging path ahead. As Michael lay in bed one night, exhausted but determined, he thought about Grace's innocent wish for a happy family. He knew that their family dynamic had changed forever, but he was committed to ensuring that his children would grow up in a loving and stable environment. Life had thrown a curveball, but Michael was determined to rise above it. With his family by his side and a steadfast resolve, he knew they would get through this. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Michael would do whatever it took to protect and provide for his children. The story of betrayal had begun, but it was far from over. Michael's journey to rebuild his life and his family was just beginning. After Grace's revelation, Michael felt a storm brewing inside him. His heart ached with a mixture of disbelief and anger. He had to know the truth, but he needed to approach the situation with caution. Confronting Samantha directly might not yield the answers he sought, and he needed concrete evidence before making any drastic decisions. The next day, while Samantha was out running errands with the children, Michael went to a local electronics store and purchased a surveillance system. He felt a pang of guilt as he picked up the equipment, but his desire for the truth overpowered any reservations. He needed to know if Samantha was truly betraying him. Back at home, Michael carefully installed the cameras in strategic locations. One camera was hidden near the garage, another in the living room, and the third in their bedroom. He made sure each camera was discreetly placed, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. The last thing he wanted was for Samantha to discover them and become suspicious. Michael spent the following days monitoring the footage religiously. He checked the recordings every evening after everyone had gone to bed, his heart racing with each click. For several days, the cameras captured nothing unusual. Samantha went about her daily routine, taking care of the children and managing the household. Michael began to question whether he had overreacted. Maybe Grace had misunderstood what she saw. But just as he started to relax, an alert from the surveillance system jolted him back to reality. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Michael was at work, engrossed in a project, when his phone buzzed with an alert from the camera system. He opened the app and saw a notification from the camera outside their house. He clicked on the alert and watched as a familiar truck pulled into the driveway. It was Tyler, the window man. Michael's pulse quickened as he switched to the living room camera. He watched in silence as Samantha greeted Tyler at the door. They exchanged a few words before she led him inside. Michael's hands shook as he continued to watch. Tyler and Samantha stood close together, talking in low voices. Then, to Michael's horror, they kissed. Michael's heart shattered. The evidence was undeniable. Samantha was having an affair with Tyler. The betrayal cut deep, and he felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. But he knew he needed to remain composed. He couldn't let his emotions cloud his judgment. Michael decided to gather more evidence before confronting Samantha. He continued to monitor the cameras, documenting each interaction between her and Tyler. Over the next week, he watched as Tyler visited their home several more times. Each visit confirmed what Michael had feared. The betrayal was real, and it was ongoing. One evening, as Michael reviewed the footage, he felt a wave of determination wash over him. He couldn't let this continue. He needed to protect his children and ensure they were safe. With a heavy heart, he formulated a plan. Michael arranged for his mother, Barbara, to come over the next day to help take care of Grace and Ethan. He also called his uncle Henry and his brother Daniel, explaining the situation and asking for their support. They agreed to meet at the house the following afternoon. When the day arrived, Michael felt a mix of nerves and resolve. He left work early and met his mother, Henry, and Daniel at the house. Barbara and his aunt Susan took Grace and Ethan to the park, keeping them away from the house during the confrontation. Michael, Henry, and Daniel entered the house quietly. The sound of laughter and muffled conversation came from the bedroom. Michael's anger flared, but he kept his emotions in check. They approached the bedroom door, and Michael took a deep breath before pushing it open. Samantha let out a scream, and Tyler scrambled off the bed, trying to gather his clothes. Michael stood in the doorway, his phone recording the scene. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, his voice cold and steady. "Michael, it's not what it looks like," Samantha cried, pulling the sheets around her. "Save it, Samantha," Michael said. "I have it all on camera." Tyler stammered apologies, but Michael ignored him. "Get out," he said to Tyler. "And don't even think about taking your truck. It's blocked in." Tyler dressed hurriedly and left without another word. Samantha sat on the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Michael, please, let me explain," she sobbed. "There's nothing to explain," Michael said, his voice hard. "You betrayed me. You betrayed our family." Barbara and Susan returned with the children after Tyler had left. Grace and Ethan were blissfully unaware of the drama that had unfolded. Michael pulled his mother aside and explained what had happened. Barbara was shocked and heartbroken for her son. Michael knew he needed to take action. He contacted Mr. Anderson, his lawyer, and began the process of filing for divorce. He couldn't see any way to reconcile with Samantha after such a betrayal. Samantha, meanwhile, was desperate to make amends. She called and texted Michael constantly, pleading for forgiveness and a second chance. But Michael was resolute. The trust had been shattered, and he couldn't see a future with Samantha anymore. The days that followed were difficult. Michael focused on his children, ensuring they felt loved and secure despite the upheaval. He arranged for Samantha to stay with her mother, Patricia, while they worked out the details of the separation. Grace sensed the tension but seemed to understand on some level that things were changing. Ethan, still too young to grasp the situation, continued to play and laugh as always. Michael leaned on his family for support. Barbara, Robert, Henry, and Daniel were there for him every step of the way. Their unwavering support gave him the strength to navigate the challenging path ahead. As Michael lay in bed one night, exhausted but determined, he thought about Grace's innocent wish for a happy family. He knew that their family dynamic had changed forever, but he was committed to ensuring that his children would grow up in a loving and stable environment. Life had thrown a curveball, but Michael was determined to rise above it. With his family by his side and a steadfast resolve, he knew they would get through this. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Michael would do whatever it took to protect and provide for his children. The story of betrayal had begun, but it was far from over. Michael's journey to rebuild his life and his family was just beginning. The morning after the confrontation, Michael woke up feeling a mix of exhaustion and determination. The events of the previous day played over and over in his mind. He knew that the path ahead would be difficult, but he was resolute in his decision. He would not allow Samantha's betrayal to destroy his family. Michael spent the morning organizing his thoughts and gathering the evidence he had collected. He reviewed the footage once more, ensuring he had everything he needed. His heart ached with each clip, but he knew this was necessary. He couldn't let emotions cloud his judgment. He contacted his lawyer, Mr. Anderson, and arranged a meeting for later that week. Michael wanted to move forward with the divorce as quickly and efficiently as possible. Mr. Anderson assured him that they would handle everything with care and discretion. By mid-morning, Michael called his mother, Barbara, to come over and help with the children. He also reached out to his uncle Henry and his brother Daniel, asking them to come by the house. He wanted them there for support, both emotional and physical, in case things got out of hand. Barbara arrived first, her face etched with concern. "How are you holding up, Michael?" she asked, giving him a tight hug. "I'm managing, Mom," Michael replied, returning the hug. "I just need to get through today." Henry and Daniel arrived shortly after, their expressions serious. "We're here for you, Mike," Daniel said, clapping his brother on the shoulder. "Whatever you need." Michael nodded, grateful for their support. "Thanks, guys. I appreciate it." With his family gathered, Michael steeled himself for the confrontation. He had asked Samantha to come over that afternoon, under the pretense of discussing some paperwork. She arrived promptly, looking nervous but composed. Samantha stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room and landing on Michael. "What's this about, Michael?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Michael took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Samantha. And I need you to be honest with me." Samantha's eyes flickered with fear, but she nodded. "Okay, let's talk." Michael led her to the living room, where Henry and Daniel stood by, ready to intervene if necessary. He pulled out his phone and played the footage of her and Tyler, the images speaking louder than any words could. Samantha's face turned pale as she watched the clips. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she covered her mouth with her hand. "Michael, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you." Michael felt a surge of anger but forced himself to stay calm. "Why, Samantha? Why did you do it?" Samantha sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. I was lonely, and Tyler was there. It was a mistake, Michael. A terrible mistake." Michael shook his head, his heart aching. "It's more than a mistake, Samantha. You betrayed me. You betrayed our family." Michael took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. "I'm filing for divorce, Samantha. I can't continue living like this." Samantha's eyes widened with panic. "Michael, please. We can work through this. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." Michael's resolve hardened. "No, Samantha. The trust is gone. I can't look at you the same way anymore." Samantha's sobs grew louder, but Michael remained firm. "For the sake of the children, we need to keep things civil. You can stay with your mother until we figure out the next steps." Henry and Daniel stepped forward, ready to intervene if necessary. Samantha looked around, realizing that she had no allies in the room. She nodded, defeated. "Okay, Michael, I'll go." After Samantha left, Michael felt a heavy weight lift off his shoulders. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was confident in his decision. He had to protect his children and himself. Barbara hugged him tightly. "You did the right thing, Michael. We're here for you." Henry and Daniel nodded in agreement. "We've got your back, Mike," Henry said. "You're not alone in this." Michael felt a surge of gratitude for his family's support. "Thank you all. I don't know what I'd do without you." That evening, as Michael tucked Grace and Ethan into bed, he felt a sense of peace. The storm had begun, but he was ready to weather it. His children were his priority, and he would do whatever it took to ensure their happiness and security. The following days were a whirlwind of meetings with lawyers and discussions with family. Michael worked closely with Mr. Anderson to finalize the divorce proceedings. He wanted to make sure everything was handled swiftly and fairly, especially concerning custody of the children. Grace and Ethan continued their routines, blissfully unaware of the changes happening around them. Michael made sure to spend extra time with them, providing reassurance and love. He wanted them to feel safe and cherished, despite the turmoil. Samantha, meanwhile, stayed with her mother, Patricia. She tried to reach out to Michael several times, but he remained firm in his decision. He communicated only through Mr. Anderson, keeping things professional and detached. As the weeks passed, Michael began to establish a new sense of normalcy. He leaned on his family for support and focused on creating a stable environment for Grace and Ethan. They played in the backyard, went on trips to the park, and enjoyed quiet evenings together. One afternoon, while playing in the backyard, Grace looked up at Michael with her big blue eyes. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" Michael knelt down and hugged her tightly. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine." Grace smiled, her innocence and trust giving Michael the strength he needed. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on. His children were his world, and he would protect them with everything he had. That night, as Michael lay in bed, he reflected on the journey so far. The betrayal had been a devastating blow, but it had also revealed the strength of his family's bond. They had rallied around him, providing unwavering support and love. Life had taken an unexpected turn, but Michael was determined to make the best of it. He would rebuild his life, one step at a time, with Grace and Ethan by his side. The future was uncertain, but Michael felt a renewed sense of hope. They would get through this together, and come out stronger on the other side. The story of betrayal had reached a pivotal moment, but Michael's journey to rebuild his life and his family was far from over. With his family's support and his unwavering determination, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The initial confrontation and decision to divorce Samantha had set Michael on a challenging path. His primary concern was ensuring the well-being of Grace and Ethan. With the support of his family, he was determined to create a stable and loving environment for his children despite the upheaval. Michael and Samantha agreed that she would temporarily stay with her mother, Patricia, until the divorce was finalized. This arrangement allowed Michael to maintain a stable home environment for the children. Each morning, Samantha would arrive to spend time with Grace and Ethan while Michael was at work, and she would leave before he returned home in the evening. This routine minimized direct contact between Michael and Samantha, making the transition smoother for everyone involved. Michael worked closely with Mr. Anderson to ensure that the legal proceedings were handled efficiently. He wanted to finalize the divorce quickly to provide clarity and stability for the children. Mr. Anderson was thorough and compassionate, guiding Michael through the complexities of the legal process. One afternoon, Michael met with Mr. Anderson to discuss the custody arrangement. "Michael, based on the evidence we have in the circumstances, I believe we can make a strong case for you to have primary custody of the children," Mr. Anderson said. Michael nodded. "That's my priority. I want to make sure Grace and Ethan have a stable home." Mr. Anderson continued, "We should also address the financial aspects, including child support. Given Samantha's actions, we can argue for minimal support obligations on your part." The legal discussions were exhausting, but Michael knew they were necessary. He was determined to protect his children and ensure their future. Despite his resolve, Michael couldn't escape the emotional turmoil that followed the betrayal. Nights were the hardest. When the house was quiet, and the children were asleep, the reality of his situation would hit him with full force. He found himself replaying the events over and over in his mind, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. One evening, as he sat alone in the living room, Barbara joined him. "Michael, you don't have to go through this alone," she said gently, sitting beside him. "We're all here for you." Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Mom. It's just, I never imagined this would happen. I thought we were happy." Barbara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes people make mistakes, and we can't always see them coming. But you have to focus on what's important now, yourself and the kids. You're doing an amazing job, and we're all proud of you." Her words offered some comfort, and Michael felt a small sense of relief. He wasn't alone in this fight. His family was his rock, and he drew strength from their unwavering support. Michael knew that trust was a fragile thing, and it had been shattered by Samantha's actions. Rebuilding trust in any future relationships would be a long and difficult process. He decided to focus on himself and his children for the time being, setting aside any thoughts of dating or finding a new partner. One weekend, Michael took Grace and Ethan to the park. It was a sunny day, and the children were excited to play on the swings and slides. As they ran around, laughing and chasing each other, Michael felt a sense of peace. This was what mattered, seeing his children happy and carefree. While Grace was playing on the swings, she suddenly stopped and looked at Michael. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore? Michael's heart sank. He knew this question would come eventually. He walked over to Grace and knelt down to her level. Sweetheart, Mommy and I are going through something called a divorce. It means we won't be living together anymore, but we both love you and Ethan very much. We'll always be here for you. Grace's eyes filled with confusion, but she nodded slowly. Will we still see Mommy? Yes, of course, Michael assured her. You'll see Mommy regularly. She loves you very much. Grace seemed satisfied with the answer, and she hugged Michael tightly. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Grace, Michael replied, holding her close. Despite his resolve to minimize contact with Samantha, there were moments when they had to interact. These encounters were tense and filled with unspoken emotions. Samantha continued to express her remorse and begged for another chance, but Michael remained firm in his decision. One evening, after dropping the kids off at Michael's house, Samantha lingered at the doorstep. Michael, can we talk for a moment? She asked, her voice trembling. Michael hesitated but nodded. All right, but let's keep it brief. Samantha stepped inside, her eyes red from crying. I know I hurt you, and I know I can't take it back. But please, can't we find a way to move past this? For the sake of the kids? Michael took a deep breath, his emotions swirling. Samantha, I can't just forget what happened. You betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. My focus now is on the kids and giving them a stable home. Tears streamed down Samantha's face. I understand, Michael. I really do. I just wish things could be different. Michael's heart ached, but he knew he had to stay strong. I wish things were different too, Samantha. But we have to face reality. The best thing we can do for the kids is to provide them with a loving environment, even if we're not together. Samantha nodded, wiping her tears. Thank you for being a good father, Michael. They need you. With each passing day, Michael established a new routine. He balanced work with parenting, ensuring that Grace and Ethan had a sense of normalcy. They continued to enjoy their time at the park, visits to the zoo, and quiet evenings at home. Michael also found solace in his hobbies. He took up gardening, spending hours in the backyard planting flowers and tending to the garden. It was therapeutic, allowing him to clear his mind and focus on something positive. Grace and Ethan often joined him in the garden, their laughter filling the air as they helped water the plants and dig in the soil. These moments brought Michael immense joy, reminding him of the simple pleasures in life. In addition to his family, Michael received support from friends and colleagues. His best friend, Paul, was a constant source of encouragement. They had known each other since college, and Paul had always been there for Michael through thick and thin. One evening, Paul came over for dinner. They sat on the patio, enjoying the cool evening breeze and catching up on life. How are you holding up, Mike? Paul asked, taking a sip of his drink. Michael shrugged. It's been tough, but I'm getting through it. The kids keep me grounded. Paul nodded. You're doing an amazing job. I can't imagine how hard it must be, but you're handling it with grace. Michael smiled. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. It's been a rough journey, but having you and my family around makes it easier. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and laughter. Paul's presence was a reminder that Michael was not alone in this battle. He had a strong support system, and that made all the difference. As the weeks turned into months, Michael began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. The divorce proceedings were progressing, and he felt a sense of closure approaching. He had come to terms with the betrayal and was focused on building a better future for himself and his children. One evening, as he sat in the living room with Grace and Ethan, he felt a sense of peace. The journey had been difficult, but they had come through it stronger. He looked at his children, their faces filled with happiness and innocence, and he knew that everything he had done was worth it. Hey, kids, Michael said, smiling. How about we plan a special trip this weekend? Maybe to the beach? Grace's eyes lit up. The beach? Yes, please, Daddy. Ethan clapped his hands, his excitement infectious. Beach, beach. Michael laughed, feeling a warmth spread through him. All right then, it's settled. We're going to the beach. That night, as Michael lay in bed, he reflected on the journey he had undertaken. The betrayal had been a devastating blow, but it had also revealed the strength of his character and the unwavering support of his family and friends. Life had taken an unexpected turn, but Michael was determined to make the best of it. He would rebuild his life, one step at a time, with Grace and Ethan by his side. The future was uncertain, but Michael felt a renewed sense of hope. They would get through this together and come out stronger on the other side. The story of betrayal had reached a turning point, but Michael's journey to rebuild his life and his family was far from over. With his family's support and his unwavering determination, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through a cheating wife's betrayal, rebuilding after the storm. Michael's story reminds us that even in the darkest times, the love for family and the support of those around us can help us find the strength to move forward. As Michael rebuilds his life and creates a stable, loving environment for his children, we see that hope and resilience are always within reach. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more heartfelt tales and inspiring content. Stay tuned, and remember, no matter the storm, brighter days are always ahead.